Everyone's currently spending a lot of time talking about the diversity perspective the Trump administration has. But what no one's really thinking about is how are individual clinical trial sites dealing with it. We're going to interview one of the site network owners. He's going to give us a first person perspective on what reality on the ground is. Stay tuned, listen in. Shuja, introduce yourself.
So my name is Shuja and I'm the CEO of Biopharma Informatics. We are a clinical research site network.
And where are you guys based, Shuja?
So our home base is Houston, Texas, but we have sites across 7 different states now.
Now, why did you choose Houston?
Houston, because I lived there. So that made it easy to start off and do it. And then obviously Houston being a medical capital, yes, it's saturated with research, but I think there's a lot of potential in there, for us, at least, a lot of private practices. So makes it easy for our business.
Now, you said it's got a lot of medical research. You guys have a lot of private practices. But then you said you actually expanded into multiple other states, is it? Or just multiple locations, multiple states? Now, why other states and how do you choose those?
When we talk about diversity in clinical trials, it's not just about, the ethnical diversity, right? It's socioeconomic diversity, regional diversity, data from all different parts of the country globally is very important. So that's why we wanted to have an outreach where when sponsors can come to us, one-stop shop, and they can get access to Texas, California, Ohio, Florida, wherever it may be.
What do you say to the fact that the Trump administration is saying diversity is not the core goal? And how is that going to play into how you have all these different sites set up?
I think being in this industry, we know the importance of diversity. Now, how things are being mandated down, that may be different. Let's see what effect that has on the, potential challenges that we may face. But I think as a whole, as an industry, we're still pretty focused on diversity. Everything reacts differently. I think there's a couple of very important populations that I think we're still missing out on: the Native American population, the Hawaii Pacific Islander population. I think so. It's important to see all the great work that we are doing in so many different areas. How does that work with those populations?
Now you talk about working with different populations. Has there been a unique situation you looked at where you said, if I didn't have this population, it would not have been reflected in my clinical research, and it would have my research would have been worse off because of it?
Yeah. So I think, again, going back to diversity and not just the ethnical diversity, but the socioeconomic diversity. Somebody who doesn't have insurance qualifying for a long-term cardiovascular outcome trial now for the next 5 years, 7 years, they will be seen free of charge by cardiologists, endocrinologists, get their medications for free. So I think not just from a business perspective, but just from a healthcare perspective, which I mean is health and care.
Right.
I think that's a very important win, and I think that's something that we are very proud of a couple of the initiatives that we have been able to do on that.
I love how you talk about that because you're referring to this new concept that everyone's talking about right now, which is research as a care option. And there are questions out there about research as a care option because the question is, do you then have some level of undue influence because you have these patients who cannot say no because they're part of the research, because they can't afford it? How do you balance and how do you work with IRBs to balance the needs of these true patients who do need the product, who do need the care, but at the same time are compromising their abilities, some might argue, to say, I don't want to be part of the study anymore?
I would argue that, right? At the end of the day, they are signing an informed consent form. Our physicians, our staff are doing their best to explain the trial to them. It's at the end of the day, these are research volunteers. They're volunteering their time. So I think it does come down to them. If they don't see a good fit for them, if the trial may not be a good fit, they don't have to participate. But I think the benefits that we have seen, another case example was patients without insurance qualified for a colorectal cancer screening trial. Luckily, sponsors were paying for the colonoscopies. So now these, I think maybe 10, 15 subjects who did not have insurance ended up getting a free colonoscopy. So I think there are instances. Now, not every trial may be right fit for them. That's for them to decide.
Absolutely. So that's really interesting. You talk about the fact that patients got options when they didn't have those options before. You mentioned the word volunteers. Do you think that patients should be paid for participating in this clinical research beyond what the menial amounts we already pay? Or do you think what we pay right now is appropriate?
I don't think it's appropriate. I think they should be paid a lot higher. We try our best, obviously, given the IRB regulations, what's in the informed consent form, what the sponsor is paying us. But I think at the end of the day, I think we have to ask for questions, right? So if you have children or your parents, whoever it may be, do you feel comfortable putting them in that trial? right? Because at the end of the day, it's not always about the money. Now, there are patients that do it for the money. We cannot deny that. However, at the same time, I think compensation should be more because they are trying something that's not FDA approved yet. And that's a risk, right? Safety has been assessed, everything has been done, but again, still, if you would not put your kids or your parents in a clinical trial, then I don't think you should be offering that to any patients as well.
Wonderful. Again, Shuja, thank you so much for coming on. How can people reach you if they have questions and they want to bring you on as a site?
So it's Biopharma Informatics. Our website is biopharmainfo.net. You can always look me up on LinkedIn. It's Shuja. Last name is Naqvi.
Call, click, or email.